Chapter 541. Let's Get a Divorce. A piece of white paper with the words, Letter of Divorce, written on it was handed to Gu Shengyin. Gu Shengyin paused for a moment. Seeing that she didn't respond, the owner of the hands became impatient. He said with disdain, Yen Ruohua, I, Lu Zijuan, have no feelings for you. You can't force a melon to be sweet. Let's part on good terms. Gu Shengyin finally reacted. She raised her head and calmly sized up the man in front of her. He was wearing a white shirt and a black vest. His hair was neat and tidy. His eyes and brows were handsome. He seemed to be in his 20s. He was the fiancé of this body, the young master of the Lu family, Lu Zijuan. Seeing her calm face, Lu Zijuan was a little surprised. He thought that this woman would cry and make a fuss. But it didn't matter. Anyway, he had enough of the wife arranged by this family. Gu Shengyin suddenly laughed softly. Her laughter was extremely cold and even full of disdain and ridicule. Young Master Lu, you keep saying that you want a divorce. But what did you give me? Letter of divorce? Gu Shengyin slowly tidied up the wrinkles on the sleeves. Her posture was elegant. It turns out that young Master Lu, who has received advanced education, still has the old stubborn ideas in his bones. Lu Zijuan frowned. What do you mean? Yen Ruohua, I tell you, no matter what, I will break off the relationship with you today. He suddenly thought of something and said, Are you waiting for my mother to come? Let me tell you, my mother also knows about what happened today. Don't be delusional. Just take the things and leave. Gu Shengyin sneered in her heart. The kind-looking old lady of the Lu family, Yen Ruohua always thought that this mother-in-law liked her. She didn't know that when she was divorced, the old lady was watching a play in the theater outside. She raised her head and saw Lu Zijuan's impatient face. She felt sick of it. Then, he walked toward his desk. What are you doing? Lu Zijuan frowned at her. What kind of trick was she playing? Gu Shengyin ignored her. She picked up the brush, dipped it in ink, and finished in one go. After she finished writing, she gently blew on the paper. When the ink was dry, she handed it to Lu Zijuan. Sign your name and we'll be even. Henceforth, we will live our own lives and not interfere with each other. At first glance, Lu Zijuan was attracted by the beautiful and elegant handwriting on the paper. This was written by Yen Ruohua? Wasn't she a wooden person who only knew how to embroider and sew? You wrote this. Gu Shengyin unceremoniously retorted, Young Master Lu, you're still so young. Do you have bad eyesight? It was obvious that he had just seen her finish writing. She knew what Lu Zijuan meant. In Lu Zijuan's heart, Yen Ruohua had always been a black and white background. When had he ever cared about what his wife would do? Lu Zijuan was mocked like this. He opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. He could only raise his head to look at the contents of the paper. A divorce letter? He looked up at Gu Shengyin in disbelief. Yes. Gu Shengyin nodded. Looking at him, she couldn't help but sneer, Young Master Lu, aren't you a self-proclaimed progressive? After you sign this divorce letter, we can be considered to have broken up peacefully. Chapter 542. It was as if Lu Zijuan had known his wife for the first time. In the few memories he had of her, every time he saw this woman, she would be wearing an old-fashioned cheongsam with a faint smile on her face. She would stand there quietly without any sense of existence. She was not sentimental and did not understand romance. She could not talk about Shelley or Hegel with him. He thought that if he handed her the divorce letter, she would cry and be unwilling, but in the end, she would still have no choice but to compromise. In the end, she would leave the Lu family in a mess and have no more care for him. But how could she be like this? He looked at Gu Shengyin carefully. Her face was still the same, but her expression was so different from his memory. There was a very bright light in her eyes, and her whole person became incomparably vivid. He had never found that his wife was such a great beauty. Young Master Lu, if there is no problem, hurry up and sign it. Gu Shengyin saw that he was only staring at her and urged impatiently. Lu Zijuan came to his senses and looked at the white paper in his hand with a moment of hesitation. Was he really going to sign it? Gu Shengyin looked at his face and decided to add fuel to the fire. Hurry up and sign it, young Master Lu. Your Lu Qingyi is still waiting for you in Yunqi class. If you don't sign it, you won't be able to get the beauty back. Right, Yun Yi was still waiting for him. Lu Zijuan thought of the woman who always looked at him with affection, and his heart fell down in an instant. He picked up the pen and signed his name without hesitation. Don't forget this. Gu Shengyin took a box of red ink over. Lu Zijuan looked at her impatient appearance and couldn't help but feel depressed in his heart. It was obviously he who wanted to divorce his wife. Why did she look even more impatient than him? He put his fingerprint on it with a dark face. Okay. Young Master Lu, I will pack up my things later. You should also send someone to check out all of my dowry. I will contact someone to move it over. I, Yan Ruohua, won't take anything from the Lu family, but I'll take everything that belongs to me. Gu Shengyin was in a good mood as she put the divorce letter into the box. She didn't forget to say this. Lu Zijuan looked at a certain woman with a bright and beautiful expression and felt very depressed in his heart. He always felt that he was the one who was dumped. He squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. Don't worry, my Lu family won't go so far as to covet your things. Gu Shengyin smiled and said, That's good. Perhaps the young master's words were effective. Yan Ruohua's belongings were all tidied up and placed neatly in the yard. Very good. Gu Shengyin was quite satisfied with this. In the end, the Lu family was a big family. Although they weren't very good internally, they had to be decent on the surface. They wouldn't do something like embezzling a woman's dowry. At this moment, the dowry maid sent out by Gu Shengyin, Xiao Xiao, also came back. Have you found everything? Gu Shengyin asked. Xiao Xiao nodded and said, Yes, Mississippi. I followed your instructions and found a small courtyard with a single door. There are well-off people nearby, so it's very safe. I also found a car. She remembered Mrs. Instructions to find a house and a car. It didn't matter if it was expensive, the key was to have a guarantee of safety. The world was not safe for two weak women outside in the future. Chapter 543. Seeing that Gu Shengyin had changed into clothes suitable for traveling, Xiao Xiao asked hesitantly, Miss, are we really not going back to the Yan family? The Yan family? In the original plot, Yan Ruohua went home as soon as she was divorced by the Lu family. But what happened? Her father treated her as the shame of the Yan family and locked her up in the most remote yard all day long, not allowing her to see any guests. Her dowry was also taken away by her mother. She was not loved and was divorced. She had no money in her hands. It was easy to imagine what kind of life Yan Ruohua was living. However, Mrs. Lin, who had watched Yan Ruohua grow up, knew the main family better. It's good that you don't go back. With master's temper, if he knows that you and the son-in-law, the young master of the Lu family divorced, I'm afraid he will be angry. Gu Shengyin nodded and said, Let's find a place to stay first. When everything settles down, we will send a letter home. Gu Shengyin only had Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin to serve her. After that, she asked the servants to put all her dowry into the car. Then she got into another car and headed to the place where she had booked. Gu Shengyin closed her eyes and began to think about what would happen next. In the original plot, after Yan Ruohua was divorced and went home, her life was very bleak. She was full of talent and had a beautiful heart, but she was lonely all her life. She died of illness in her own yard in her 40s. It wasn't until many years after her death that the poetry collection Ode to Freedom that she wrote in that small courtyard, as well as the short story Tearful Makeup, that she used herself as a blueprint to expose the injustice of this era towards women, finally shown in the literary world. When people learned about the short and miserable life of this stunning woman, they all expressed great pity and sympathy for her. But no matter how much pity there was, it was useless for Yan Ruohua at that time. That was a long time in the future. Now that she came to this world, Gu Shengyin would not let Yan Ruohua repeat the same fate again. As for Lu Zijuan, the culprit who caused Yan Ruohua's miserable life, Gu Shengyin sneered in her heart. He claimed that he was living in a new society and hated everything left behind from the old era. Therefore, he hated her, the wife chosen by his elders, very much. Therefore, he advocated free love and was madly infatuated with the actress Lu Yuni. Actors were affectionate, but actors were heartless. Lu Yuni was affectionate towards every man, but because she had seen so many men abandon their wives for her, she was stingy with her true feelings towards every man. She had said to Lu Zijuan, "If you divorce your wife, I'll be with you." It was just a joke. She said it casually, but Lu Zijuan took it seriously. When Lu Zijuan left Yan Ruohua and went to find Lu Yuni excitedly, she was drinking in another man's arms with a smile. Of course, Lu Zijuan was unwilling. He wanted to win back Lu Yuni's heart. However, although the Lu family was powerful, there were many more families in Cloud City that were more powerful than the Lu family. Lu Zijuan's leg was broken by one of Lu Yuni's men and he was carried back to the Lu family. The business of the Lu family was also suppressed by its rivals in the business circle and the situation was getting worse and worse. Lu Zijuan's father fell ill in a hurry and the head of the family was replaced by Lu Zijuan, who only knew how to talk on paper. The result could be imagined. In just 3 years, the Lu family, which used to be a rich and powerful family, had to sell their ancestral property to barely survive. Gu Shengyin only wanted to say one word about such an ending: retribution. Chapter 544. Lin Mengya and Lin Mengya arrived at the rented yard. The owners of the house were already waiting for them. They were an old couple in their 50s. Seeing Gu Shengyin's posture, they hesitated for a moment. Gu Shengyin said with a smile, "We moved here from North City not long ago. I happened to be studying here, so I rented the yard in advance. My family will come over in a few days, so I brought a little more than usual." Of course, Lin Mengya couldn't tell them that she lived alone with 2 servants. Although this family looked nice, she didn't know what they were thinking. It would be bad if they had any bad intentions. Sure enough, after hearing Lin Mengya's words, the mistress smiled and said, "No wonder you brought so many things. It turns out that you are moving. My wife and I are also going to move in with our son. That's why this courtyard is empty." The 2 sides quickly negotiated the price. Gu Shengyin rented it for a whole year. Both sides signed the agreement. Gu Shengyin asked Xiao Xiao to pay the money, and the procedures were completed. "Miss, what are we going to do in the future?" Xiao Xiao was actually a little confused. She only knew how to do one thing since she was a child, even if it was to serve Yan Ruohua. Now that she suddenly moved out, she felt a little lost. Mrs. Lin rolled her eyes at her. "You will serve Miss like how you used to serve her." Gu Shengyin actually didn't know what to do at the moment. She knew a lot of things, but she didn't know what to do in this world. The simplest and most comfortable way was to do nothing. Yan Ruohua's dowry was enough for her and her servants to live a comfortable life for the rest of their lives. Lin Mengya only needed to eat, drink, and have fun. Then she could publish what Yan Ruohua had written. Naturally, she could win a good reputation. But in this way, what was the meaning of her coming to this world? Before Yan Ruohua died, what she regretted most was that she didn't have the courage to resist when she was divorced. When she was neglected by her family, she chose to endure. She was full of talent, but she was imprisoned in this small yard for the rest of her life. She had almost never fought for her own life. If she couldn't let Yan Ruohua live a wonderful life without regrets, why did Gu Shengyin have to come here? Wait a minute. Eat, drink and be merry. Gu Shengyin's eyes lit up. This was not a bad idea. She vaguely had some plans for the future. Yunqi class. Lu Yuni, the #1 cyan-dressed girl in Yunqi class who was famous for her beauty in Yunqing, was singing the song Drunken Imperial Concubine on the stage. What was different from the past was that she only had one audience this time. Lu Yun-yi gently waved her sleeves. Her gentle and affectionate eyes were affectionately looking at the young man sitting on the yellow pear wood chair. The man had a sharp gaze, a high-nosed bridge, and his thin lips were tightly pursed. His military uniform was meticulous, and the buttons of his uniform were tightly fastened all the way to the top. He sat upright on the chair. He did not have any reaction to Lu Yuni's teasing. When the song was over, Lu Yuni got off the stage. She was still in her complicated costume. She bowed to the man and said in a mellow voice, "I'm Lu Yuni. Greetings to young Marshal Huangfu." She raised her head and happened to meet Huangfu Qi's eyes. In just a moment, she seemed to be surrounded by endless coldness and murderous intent. Her face under the heavy makeup suddenly turned pale, and her body even began to tremble uncontrollably. This man was too terrible. Chapter 545. Huangfu Qi, Yun City's young marshal. His father, Huangfu Guo, controlled the forces of 8 provinces in the entire northwest region. In this chaotic world, the one with the army was the boss. Huangfu Guo could be called a local emperor. In addition to his wife, Huangfu Guo also had 8 concubines. However, for some unknown reason, except for the wife who gave birth to Huangfu Qi, the only son, the other concubines all gave birth to beautiful daughters. If there were no accidents, in 100 years, the master of Yun City and even the 8 provinces in the northwest would be the person in front of her. The leader of the Yunqi class had already told Lu Yuni in private that as long as she could capture the young marshal's heart, she would not need to perform for any high-ranking officials and nobles. She could directly fly to the top of the tree. If she was lucky, she would be promoted to a concubine. Then she would really have a golden life. However, Lu Yuni secretly complained in her heart. Her charm, which had always been successful among men, seemed to be unattractive in the eyes of the young marshal. "Lu Yuni," the man opposite her spoke. His voice was very low and seemed to have a strange rhythm. It was very attractive. Lu Yuni's heart trembled violently. She stood obediently with her eyes lowered. "You sang well." Huangfu Qi stood up. His light green military uniform brought a gust of wind and brushed past the tip of Lu Yuni's nose. He was ready to leave. Lu Yuni bit her lip. Thinking of the leader's instructions, she couldn't help but muster up the courage to take a step forward. "Young marshal." Huangfu Qi stopped and turned to look at her. Lu Yuni looked at his flawless side profile and suddenly understood why this man was the dream man of all the women in Yun City. "Young marshal, don't you need Yuni to serve you?" The beautiful actress looked at him shyly with her naturally charming eyes and gently lowered her head. With such a beautiful face and such an alluring invitation, there were very few men who could refuse. However, the one in front of her was one. "No need." Huangfu Qi turned his head and slowly walked away. Lu Yuni wanted to ask him to stay again, but unfortunately, he did not give her any chance. Not long after Huangfu Qi left, the leader of the Yunqi class, who had been waiting outside, came in. "What's wrong? Haven't you always been good at dealing with men? It wasn't easy for a real crown prince to come this time, but you can't even hold him back." The class leader's heart also ached. If Lu Yuni could get close to young Marshal Mu, their Yunqi class's position in Yun Cheng's theater world would truly be as stable as Mount Tai. Lu Yuni had always been used to being flattered. Naturally, she also had the temper of the red horn. Hearing this, she sneered, "He doesn't like a prostitute like me. Maybe he dislikes how many people I have served in his heart. If you really want me to enter a rich family with a clean record, fine. From tomorrow onwards, I will only be in charge of the opera. Those old Master Wang and young Master Li, don't ask me to drink with them." When the leader heard this, he knew that she was angry, so he quickly smiled apologetically and said, "Hey, my great-aunt Lu, I'm just worried about you." "What are you angry about?" "Be careful not to lose your voice from anger." Lu Yuni's eyes wandered. "I'm also anxious. Who doesn't know that you love me the most?" As if nothing had happened before, the two of them instantly became cheerful. However, no one knew what she was thinking in her heart. Chapter 546. Gu Shengyin walks on the street. All kinds of people pass by her on the street. Miss, aren't we going shopping? Xiao Xiao is a little puzzled. Miss takes her out today, and she thinks they are going to buy something. However, Miss takes her to wander around the street all morning, but they don't buy anything. Gu Shengyin smiled and said, I came out today to go shopping in reality. That's right. She wanted to see what kind of life the people in this world, especially the women, lived. She wanted to know what they pursued and what they needed. Xiao Xiao looks at her miss in confusion. She doesn't understand the meaning of this sentence. Isn't shopping just buying things? Gu Shengyin looks at her confused look and smiles. Let's go. We've been shopping all morning. I'll take you to have a big meal. Xiao Xiao is happy to hear this. Thank you, Mississippi. The two walk to the famous Yunqing Delicacies restaurant nearby. Suddenly, there is a cry of surprise behind, thief. Gu Shengyin turns back and sees a thin man in a black leather jacket and a cap running towards her with a lady's handbag in his hand. He seems to be a little flustered. The lady whose handbag was robbed also has a servant chasing after her. Gu Shengyin steps aside with Xiao Xiao. Then, when the thin man passes by her, she gently stretches out her leg. Poof! The thin man falls directly on his face. It's really a heavy fall. The thin man gets up quickly. Seeing that the person chasing him has already come to him, he can't run away. He looks ferocious and simply stops running. He doesn't even pick up the bag that just fell on the ground. He rushes straight to Gu Shengyin. Bitch, you spoil my fun. It seems that he wants to teach Gu Shengyin a lesson before being caught. Gu Shengyin looked at him calmly. She was not afraid at all. Although Yan Ruohua's body was weak, it was not a problem for her to display some fighting skills. Xiao Xiao was even more nervous, ready to stand in front of her miss at any time. When the skinny man's hand grabbed Gu Shengyin's shoulder, her expression turned cold and she was about to make a move. Bang! Blood splattered in front of Gu Shengyin, some of it staining her clothes. The skinny man's hand fell limply. He couldn't care less about Gu Shengyin now. Instead, he held his right hand and wailed. Gu Shengyin sensed something and looked in a certain direction. The cold-faced man had just put away the gun in his hand. He calmly ordered the people behind him. He dares to commit theft and robbery in Yun City. Cripple one of his hands and send him to the law enforcement department. Release him only when he becomes obedient. Someone responded to the order. Soon, two people in military uniforms came over and took the skinny man away. The skinny man seemed to be scared when he saw the man who shot the gun. He was taken back without any resistance. After dealing with this matter, the man turned around and left. From the shooting to now, he didn't look in the direction of Gu Shengyin. Gu Shengyin looked at his back thoughtfully. Miss, are you all right? I was really scared to death just now. Xiao Xiao finally came back to her senses, and when she saw the bloodstains on Gu Shengyin's clothes, she began to make a fuss about nothing. Chapter 547. A maid like Xiao Xiao, who has served her master since childhood, may have never seen blood in her life. She was quite frightened. Gu Shengyin comforted her. I'm fine. Don't worry. She continued helplessly. It seems that I can't treat you to a big meal. I'm afraid that no place dares to let me in. The world was not peaceful. Indeed, no one dared to let a person with blood in her body enter the door, even if the other party looked like a weak woman. Mississippi. A hesitant voice came from behind them. It was the madam whose handbag had been robbed. Gu Shengyin turned her head. She was far away before, so she didn't see clearly. Now she looked carefully and understood why the man chose this madam. This madam was about 30 years old. She was wearing an emerald green cheongsam and a pure white fur shawl. Emerald green was a very challenging color. If one wasn't careful, they would be overshadowed by it. But obviously, this madam didn't have such troubles. Her skin was white, and there was even no fine line on her well-maintained face. The emerald green cheongsam showed more elegance and youth on her body. Looking at her body, the thumb-sized pearl necklace and the emerald green ring on her finger, all showed that she lived a good life. This was a madam who knew how to dress up and lived a rich life. When the madam saw Gu Shengyin for the first time, she was secretly amazed by her appearance and temperament. She didn't know when there was such a lady in Yunqing. She should have known such a lady with such appearance and bearing. "Thank you for helping me just now." She saw clearly that it was Gu Shengyin who stretched out her foot and tripped the man who robbed her. She even almost suffered revenge because of this. Gu Shengyin smiled politely. "It's just a little effort." "You're welcome." She pointed to the blood on her body and smiled embarrassedly. "It's not suitable for me to stay outside for a long time." The madam apologized. "It's because of me. My house is nearby. You have to go home with me to change clothes." She laughed again. "Look at me, I forgot to introduce myself. My husband's surname is Shen, and he's a businessman. He lives nearby at 33 Baolin Street." Gu Shengyin shook her head. "That's too troublesome. My house isn't too far from here. You can just go home and change." When the madam saw Gu Shengyin's insistence, she couldn't say anything more. She just asked the servant behind her to hand over a name card. "This is my name card. My address is on it. If you have any difficulties in the future, you can come here to find me." Gu Shengyin lowered her head and thanked him. This was the other party's good intentions. If he were to refuse again, then he would be unable to tell good from bad. When they get home, Mrs. Lin is frightened to see Gu Shengyin's appearance. She hurriedly asks what happened. After listening to Xiao Zhao's story, Mrs. Lin looked at Gu Shengyin disapprovingly. "Oh, my dear miss, this is not something a delicate lady like you should do. How can you be so courageous? These villains are all deranged. What if they become ruthless?" Well, Mrs. Lin, go and prepare a bucket of hot water for me. I want to take a good bath to get rid of the bad luck." Gu Shengyin interrupted Mrs. Lin's nagging with a smile. Good. Mrs. Lin's eyes brighten when she hears this. Yes, it's time to get rid of the bad luck. Chapter 548. In a place that Gu Shengyin didn't know, Huang Fuqi was looking at something carefully. It was information on Yan Ruohua's childhood. Divorce. He repeated this sentence, and the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. She's got character. He thought of how the woman's expression didn't change when she saw blood splatter on her body, and a trace of admiration flashed through his eyes. A divorce seemed like something she would do. But this information, Huang Fuqi frowned. Although Yan Ruohua had read poetry and books since she was a child and had studied under famous scholars, her personality was that of a typical lady from an old society. She was so gentle that it could even be described as cowardly. Her divorce from Lu Zijuan should be the most deviant thing she had done in her life. How could a person change so much in such a short time? Could it be that she was really hurt by love, causing her temperament to change so drastically? He thought of the person he saw on the street earlier. Before he shot her, she made a gesture with her hand. She was clearly going to defend herself. Wasn't the first reaction of a young lady from a wealthy family who had lived in a mansion since she was a child to avoid such a thing? There was something wrong with this woman. Keep an eye on this woman for me. She lives. Huang Fuqi ordered his subordinates. Gu Shengyin had no idea that a certain man had become suspicious of her identity. She had been careless. She had thought that after leaving the Lu family, there would be no one who was familiar with Yan Ruohua, so her behavior had inevitably revealed some traces. Who would have thought that young Marshal Huang Fu, whom she had only met once, would specially send someone to investigate her? Huang Fuqi didn't know why he was inexplicably interested in a woman. It must be because she was too suspicious. He told himself. Host, someone has already become suspicious of your identity. Please pay attention to your personal behavior. Once your identity is suspected by many people, the host is likely to be discovered by the laws of the world and expelled. The system immediately detected some kind of information. Suspect? Who? Gu Shengyin asked. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be. The news of her divorce from Lu Zijuan shouldn't have reached the Yen family in another city yet. Besides, the Yen family couldn't easily suspect their daughter's identity before seeing her in person. Could it be Lu Zijuan? He had never cared about what Yen Ruohua was like. Now that the two of them had nothing to do with each other, he had probably forgotten about her. Why would he think of her for no reason? The system's body kept flashing with white light. The system can only collect information, but cannot determine the other person's identity. But that night, Gu Shengyi knew who it was. Her house was being watched. As long as the system checked the identities of those people, it would be very easy to find out who sent them. It's actually him. Gu Shengyi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She's Youngz's I's young marshal. S Huang Fu's. Should she say, hurt, his during the day, he acted as if he wasn't interested in him at all, but in private, he sent someone to investigate his identity. Teet heat no testims. However, no matter how his identity changed, Gu Shengyi always believed in one thing. That was, this man would never hurt her. Chapter 549. Just take it as a security guard for free. Gu Shengyi doesn't tell Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin about it. On the one hand, she doesn't want them to worry. On the other hand, if they expose their whereabouts, how can she find out when Huang Fuqi's people are so secretive? It will be hard to explain at that time. The next day, Gu Shengyi starts her career. Yunqing Daily is the most popular newspaper in Yunqing. Because the Huangfu family, which is in charge of the 8 provinces in the northwest, is in Yunqing, this newspaper is also a wind vane of the 8 provinces in the northwest. Most of the articles in Yunqing Daily are about some political events, and the rest are the patriotic remarks of some famous literati and their own political opinions. Less are some short serialized articles, and a few businessmen spend a lot of money to advertise in it. Gu Shengyi aims at Yunqing Daily. Yes, what she wants to do is to publish some small articles through Yunqing Daily. As for the content, Gu Shengyi has experienced countless worlds. She says, what do women care about most? Beauty, dress, appearance. Everything beautiful and the things that can make them beautiful. Women in this era were subjected to too many restrictions. Except for a small number of people, who have the conditions and capital to pursue beauty as they want, such as Mrs. Shen. Most women, every day, are in charge of everything at home, take care of children, and put up with their husband's extravagance outside. Maybe one day they will bring back a beautiful concubine. Starting from becoming beautiful, they become more confident. Gu Shengyi picked up his pen and wrote his first submission letter. She knows what Yunqing Daily is advocating now. Liberation and freedom. The next day, a short article with a completely different style appeared in Yunqing Daily. The woman, whose pen name is Lin Jianke, attracted countless people at the beginning of the article. When I wrote this article, I had just divorced my husband. It's not a divorce, but a divorce. This is probably the most courageous and least regretful thing I've ever done in my life. I've never done anything wrong to him. I've never done anything wrong to my family, but he wants to divorce me because he likes a woman outside. Perhaps there was resentment and unwillingness, but more than that, there was relief. Since the monarch has no heart, I will give up. This sentence has been passed down for thousands of years, but how many people can really do it? In this era, such things were common. Even if Lu Zijuan saw it, he would not suspect that the guest was Yen Ruohua. Many of the noblewomen fell into deep thought after seeing this. Most of the reactions came from the female students who had received modern education. Well done, this is what we women should be like. You have so many women outside, but you're so picky about me. Do you really think that women are made of mud? However, in another part of the crowd, this article caused a huge uproar. This is ridiculous. A woman should have 3 obedience and 4 virtues. She was despised and abandoned by her husband's family, but she didn't feel ashamed. How could she publish such a story in the newspaper? Public morals are really degenerating day by day. This was a well-known literary giant. Who is this Lin Jianke? How can a woman who can't even win her husband's heart be so arrogant? At this time, no one knew what kind of changes this woman called Lin Jianke would bring to Yunqing and the women of the Republican Alliance in the future. Chapter 550. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Just as everyone was paying attention to this forest dweller, or trying to guess who this person was, the forest dweller suddenly spoke. She suddenly disappeared without a trace. Someone even wrote a letter to Yunqing Daily to ask, but the other party just replied apologetically that they were only responsible for receiving manuscripts and publishing what they thought was valuable. They didn't know who Forest Visitor was. Even if they knew, they wouldn't reveal the author's information. Otherwise, who would dare to submit manuscripts to Yunqing Daily? Gu Shengyin didn't disappear without a trace. She just didn't publish one article after another when her popularity was at its peak like other people. Hunger marketing was an extremely effective strategy in the future. Of course, Huang Fuqi also read the newspaper. Unlike others, he was the only one other than Gu Shengyin who knew who Forest Visitor was. He was surprised by her calmness. At first, he thought that even though she had been strong-willed once in the Liu family, even though it was a divorce, which sounded better than being divorced, she was just a pitiful woman in the eyes of outsiders. She should be sad in her heart. Any woman who encountered such a thing should be sad. But looking at her writing, there was no sense of sadness at all. He only saw a free and easy feeling and a sense of relief. Her previous unhappy marriage had been a burden to her. Huang Fuqi found that the more he knew about this woman, the more he was attracted by her unusualness. She was a strange woman. At first, he just wanted to know about her because he suspected her identity. But now, he wanted to know more about this person and observe her. Huang Fuqi knew that such thoughts were dangerous. If he wasn't careful, he would probably fall into it. There was no solution. A week later, people found that there was another article in Yunqing Daily. This woman seemed to be writing a diary, describing her life. Her writing style was very elegant and smooth. Even a simple daily diary was as fascinating as a humorous short story. Because of the last article, everyone was very curious about Forest Visitor, a woman who lived alone with her husband. There were even many people who admired her or hated her who wanted to see what kind of life she was living alone. Gu Shengyin showed them the elegant life of a single aristocrat. In the short 1,000-word article, people seemed to see the image of a leisurely and elegant woman. She read and studied every day to enrich herself. She didn't need to be busy taking care of her family and had plenty of time to dress herself up. Every day after dinner, she could take her to various places in Yuncheng to walk around and exercise her body. In the end, Gu Shengyin revealed her purpose. At the end of the article, she attached a design drawing that she had drawn herself. Gu Shengyin, who had lived in various worlds, was experienced enough to be considered knowledgeable. She knew what kind of clothes looked good on her and how to match them to bring out her temperament. In this era that had obviously just been liberated from the feudal era, the things in her mind were enough for her to easily lead the trend. It was a slightly modified Cheongsam design. The most representative clothing for women in this era was the Cheongsam. Gu Shengyin didn't expect to change people's aesthetic standards so quickly. Take your time. Chapter 551. The name Lin Jianke caused an uproar again. This time, it was not only her name that caused an uproar, but also the Cheongsam that she had modified. Originally, some of the noble women in the tailor shops only thought that the dress she had drawn was very beautiful, so they wanted to try it out by themselves. But they did not expect that the effect would be so good. She had only slightly adjusted the collar and sleeves, and changed the proportion of the dress. Why did it look completely different when she wore it? Many tailors and clothing shops saw a business opportunity. They began to produce Cheongsams of this style in batches according to the style. The fabric was good and the workmanship was exquisite, so the price was naturally expensive. The Cheongsam that was suitable for most people was of course the Cheongsam that was of good quality and cheap. A trend of improving Cheongsam was set off in the entire Yun city. Now, walking on the streets, one could see women wearing the latest new Cheongsam. Along with this new Chong Sam, the name Lin Jianke was also popular. Many people were speculating that the person who could come up with such an exquisite and simple style of dress must be smart and pure. They did not know what kind of woman her husband was infatuated with that he was willing to abandon such a first wife. What do you think this Lin Jianke is doing? How did she think that the collar could be like this? Huang Fu-chi sat on the chair helplessly. His graceful and elegant mother, Madame Bai, was wearing the most popular Chong Sam at this time and was talking to him. Madame Bai was the legal wife of the Huang Fu kingdom and only had one child, Huang Fu-chi. However, this one son had established her unshakable position in the Huang Fu kingdom's harem. At this moment, she said happily, "I really want to meet this Lin Jianke. I think she must be a beautiful and gentle lady." Huang Fu-chi thought of a certain figure that he had caught a glimpse of. Beautiful and gentle? He had an inexplicable feeling of secret joy that belonged to him. He said casually, "Maybe." Just as everyone was talking about Lin Jianke, she disappeared again. Only Huang Fu-chi knew that the woman was actually just strolling around Yun City every day with her little maid. Every day, her subordinates would report that she went to a very famous place today, went to a restaurant that was said to be opened by the imperial chef of the previous dynasty tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. Huang Fu-chi could not help but want to laugh. This woman was really like what she wrote in her article. Women should know how to enjoy themselves. She was different from all the women he had met. To when the popularity of the Chong Sam died down a little, Gu Shengyin estimated that it was about time and wrote another article to Yunqing Daily. This time, her article was sent directly to the chief editor's desk. The reason was that in the past half a month, the newspapers that published Lin Jianke's article and the Chong Sam had been sold out. The staff of the newspaper office had worked overtime for a week and reprinted 3 times. Except for a few major events that were known to the whole country, Yunqing Daily had never sold so many copies. And Shengyin and Lin Jianke, Lin Jiu, Lin Jianke. This middle-aged chief editor was an intellectual who wore glasses. He not only had a wife who worked hard at home, but also a beautiful and affectionate woman who understood his words. He was originally very disdainful of Lin Jianke's comments, but at this time, who cares? Those who could bring him bonuses were gold nuggets. Chapter 552. This time, in addition to Gu Xingyin's usual speech about how women should live for themselves, he also published an article that lived up to everyone's expectations. This time, she also published a design she had drawn. It was still a Chong Sam, but it was very different from the previous one. It was an exquisite and elegant close-fitting long dress. The design of the fishtail at the end of the dress was something that women in Yunqing had never seen before. It looked a little strange, but it had a strange beauty. This time, the people in the clothing stores learned their lesson. They hurriedly bought the newspaper and made a set according to the design in it overnight to see the effect. Then, the businessmen with a keen sense of smell immediately found a business opportunity. This dress was obviously designed for the upper-class women. No woman who went out to work every day would wear such a dress. Needless to say, the rich women who secretly paid attention to Forest Visitor found their own tailors and made a set. Beautiful. Although such a design had high requirements for the figure, wasn't it the same for a Chong Sam? The popularity of the fishtail dress was within Gu Xingyin's expectation. After all, it was a classic design. Women were born with a sense of smell for beauty. Not long after, at the banquets of the upper-class society in Yunqing, the ladies' formal dresses were quietly replaced by fishtail dresses. Those foreigners who had always been arrogant and mocked Chinese women for only wearing Chong Sams were extremely surprised and asked, "What kind of dress is this?" Then, some rich women in Yunqing proudly told them that it was designed by the designer of Yunqing. Gu Shengyin wanted such an effect. What she wanted was not only to be published in the newspaper every half a month or every other time. She was waiting for someone to take the initiative to come to her. Soon, that person showed up. Because the person didn't know Gu Xingyin's identity, he directly sent a letter to Gu Shengyin by writing to Yunqing Daily. Yunqing Daily sent the letter to the mailbox where the remuneration was distributed every time. It was a clothing factory. They expressed their interest in Gu Xingyin's designs and were willing to cooperate with her. They were also willing to give her 30% of the profits. All the materials and labor costs would be borne by them, and Gu Shengyin would receive 30% of the profits. Such conditions were quite generous. This boss had a good eye for business and had the guts to gamble. He was the first businessman to extend an olive branch to Gu Shengyin, and it was highly likely that he would be the one to give the designer the most profit. Gu Shengyin knew how much risk the other party had to take. Because of this, she admired such a businessman even more. Furthermore, she glanced at his name card. His surname was Shen. Shan Yuanqing and his wife came to an elegant tea house in Yunqing early in the morning. He had been in a good mood these days because the mysterious Ms. Lin Jianke had agreed to cooperate with him, and they had agreed to meet here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon for a detailed discussion. He was probably the first person to know Lin Jianke's true identity. He was a little excited when he thought about it. Considering that the other party was a lady, he was afraid that she would feel uncomfortable. He also took his wife with him. What kind of person do you think she will be? Mrs. Shen was wearing the modified Chong Sam that had been very popular since it came out. She was also very curious about Lin Jianke. Are the two of you Mr. and Mrs. Shen? A gentle voice sounded. Chapter 553. For some reason, Mrs. Shen felt that the voice was very familiar. She looked up and saw that it was indeed someone she knew. You are. Mrs. Shen couldn't believe it. Gu Shengyin smiled and nodded. Hello, Mrs. Shen. I'm Lin Jianke. Mr. Shen also stood up and shook hands with Gu Shengyin in amazement. He looked at the woman in front of him. Her long hair was loosely braided and tied with a ribbon at the end. A few strands of hair fell naturally on her cheeks. Yan Ruohua had the appearance of a classic beauty, willowy eyebrows, almond-shaped eyes, and an oval face. As a man, Shan Yuanqing couldn't understand her husband who had fallen in love with another woman. What kind of woman could make him give up such a beauty? However, this kind of thing touched a sore spot, so Mr. Shen didn't ask much. How should I address you, Mr. Lin Jianke? Nowadays, people would also use honorifics for talented women. My surname is Yan. Mr. Shen nodded. Hello, Miss Yan. I've already introduced myself in the name card. I'm Shan Yuanqing, the boss of White Cloud Cloth. At this time, Mrs. Shen spoke. She was more interested in Gu Shengyin's dress. Miss Yan, I've never seen the style of the dress you're wearing. Did you also design it yourself? Gu Shengyin chuckled inwardly. She had specially worn such a dress today to pique the other party's curiosity. She nodded. It's a design I drew in my spare time. Today, she was wearing a long white dress that reached her ankles. The shirt had a small lapel collar, but the collar was a very classical lantern sleeve. The two sides were tied into a ribbon, and the pearl chain around her waist was tightened. She looked fresh and elegant. Seeing Gu Shengyin's dress, Mr. Shan didn't hesitate and immediately decided to cooperate with Gu Shengyin. Shan Yuanqing proposed a small change. You're willing to give me 20% of White Cloud Cloth's share. Gu Shengyin was a little surprised. At that time, the ownership of property was very important. She didn't expect Shan Yuanqing to make such a request. Shan Yuanqing's attitude was very sincere. Miss Yan, I'm a businessman. I think it's a very pleasant thing to be able to work with you. I'm willing to give 20% of the shares to Miss Yan so that we can witness the rise of White Cloud Cloth Firm together. He had his own selfish motives. Although giving Gu Shengyin a 20% share seemed like a loss in the short term, this was the only way Miss Yan would wholeheartedly hope for White Cloud Textile Store's business to prosper. With Miss Yan's talent, she would probably be able to bring much more to White Cloud Textile Store in the future than what he was giving out now. Gu Shengyin pondered for a long time and finally agreed to this request. Then, Miss Yan, I wish us a happy cooperation. Shan Yuanqing later wrote in his recollections, the best decision I've ever made in my life was to cooperate with Madame Yan before she had fully revealed her talent to the world. Later, He was described as the most successful investor in history books. Of course, this was all in the future. Now, Shen Yuanqing was just the owner of a small business in Yuncheng, and Gu Shengyin was just a designer with a little reputation in Yuncheng. Half a month later, Lin Jianke released a new style of clothing in Yunqing Daily. Then, there was a declaration. The general idea was that from now on, she wouldn't release any more clothes. She had already signed a contract with White Cloud Textile Store and would release new clothes regularly. If there was a need, they could pay attention. It was also at this time that some businessmen who were still on the sidelines vaguely realized what they had missed. Chapter 554. To some extent, Gu Xingyin's life was quite leisurely. She only needed to submit a design paper to by Yunqing every month, and publish a chicken soup in Yunqing Daily from time to time. Yes, chicken soup. She didn't know which world this kind of comforting, encouraging articles were called chicken soup articles. She dressed up carefully today and went to Yunqi class with Xiao Xiao. "Miss, why do we have to go to that kind of place?" Xiao Xiao was a little indignant. In her heart, she didn't have a good impression of Lu Yuni, who made her disliked by the ex-son-in-law. To be honest, Gu Shengyin didn't have much resentment towards Lu Yuni. After all, she was just an actress. Accompanying her benefactor was just her job. Lu Yuni's Qingyi is the best in Yunqing. How can we not see it? Besides, it is said that she herself is also a great beauty. Gu Shengyin said with interest. Yan Ruohua was also a great beauty. It was just that she was beautiful, but too dignified and elegant. She was destined to be less popular than such a beauty. Xiao Xiao didn't understand. "Miss, do you really just want to watch the show? Don't you hate that Lu Yuni?" Gu Shengyin asked back. "Why should I hate her? If I really want to hate, I should hate Lu Zijuan more. Lu Zijuan can't control himself. Even if Lu Yuni didn't exist, there might be Yong Yuni, Zhao Yuni." But, although Xiao Xiao felt that Gu Shengyin's words were reasonable, she still felt that something was wrong. Anyway, she just didn't like that Lu Yuni. Gu Shengyin looked at Xiao Xiao's expression and wanted to laugh. This little girl was indignant for Yan Ruohua. "Xiao Xiao, don't worry. I just want to see her. I don't like her that much. Just like you said, she's just an actress. Is it worth it for you to be so angry?" When Lu Qingyi appeared, the seats were always very scarce. An ordinary seat would cost about a month's living expenses for an ordinary person. Gu Shengyin sat on a chair with a smile. She looked around and realized that men were not the only ones who were here to watch the show. Just like her, there were also many noble ladies who brought along their maids. After all, Lu Yuni's voice was really good. Many true drama fans were her regular customers. The first few to perform were the other members of Yunqi's class. After all, they were one of the best opera troupes in Yunqing. Even if they were not as famous as Lu Yuni, their foundation was not bad. Gu Shengyin sipped her tea as she watched. She didn't feel bored. The song ended. Gu Shengyin noticed that many people around her straightened their backs without leaving a trace. They stopped eating their snacks and put down the teacups in their hands. She knew that Lu Yuni was going to appear. It was like a cloud floating over from the horizon. Gu Shengyin couldn't help but praise it when she saw it. No matter what kind of person Lu Yuni was, her acting skills were indeed top-notch. Then, Lu Yuni started singing. "The Kuan Mountain Jade shatters the phoenix calls." This was a poem written by a very famous poet for a musician. Gu Shengyin felt that it was very good to use at this moment. Lu Yuni quickly finished singing a song and went off the stage. The rule of being the pillar of Yunqi's class was that she only sang once a day. A famous actress had to have the temperament of a famous actress. "Let's go, Xiao Xiao." Gu Shengyin called her maid. "Miss, are we really going to leave like this?" Xiao Xiao still couldn't believe it. According to the script, shouldn't the current development be to find someone to settle the score? Chapter 555. Gu Shengyin couldn't help but knock on her maid's head. I told you not to listen to those boring scripts. Gu Shengyin glared at her helplessly. She didn't care about Lu Zijuan at all, nor did she care about Lu Yuni. She only wanted Yan Ruohua to lead a good life. If she really disregarded her status to make things difficult for an actress, not to mention whether she could succeed, this matter itself would be degrading. Needless to say, if this fell into the eyes of some people, she was afraid that she couldn't forget Lu Zijuan at all, and her previous straightforwardness was just pretending to be free and easy. Why bother? She was looking for trouble for herself. The wicked would be punished by God. She didn't have to do anything. In the original plot, these two people didn't have a good ending. But sometimes, the truth was that if you didn't want to find trouble, trouble would come to find you. Gu Shengyin had just walked out of the theater with a smile when she heard a hesitant call. Yan Ruohua? Gu Shengyin was a little helpless. Now in Yunqing, only Yan Ruohua's former husband's family could recognize her original identity, the Lu family. And there was only one person in the Lu family who was most likely to appear in this place. That Lu Zijuan who was willing to die for Lu Yuni. It was indeed Lu Zijuan. Lu Zijuan looked at Gu Shengyin with some surprise. They hadn't seen each other for just 2 months. How could she have changed so much? If he wasn't so familiar with Yan Ruohua's face, he would have thought that he had recognized the wrong person. You. Lu Zijuan looked at Gu Shengyin in a strange way. In fact, even the previous Yan Ruohua was also strange to him. Lu Zijuan didn't know what to say. He suddenly thought of something, and his face changed. Why are you here? What do you want to do to Yuni? Gu Shengyin had been watching the wonderful changes in his face as if she was watching a performance. At this moment, she finally heard him choke out a sentence. She looked at the people coming and going at the entrance of the theater. Some people saw the three of them standing there and cast curious gazes on them. Xiao Xiao moved closer to Gu Shengyin uneasily. Gu Shengyin looked around and took the initiative to walk to the side. Lu Zijuan thought she was going to leave and couldn't help but say, Yan Ruohua, stop right there. I told you to stop right there. Gu Shengyin did not even bother with him. Did she not find it embarrassing? When Lu Zijuan saw that this woman didn't pay attention to his words at all, he was originally furious. However, when he saw that she didn't pay attention to him at all, he was speechless for a while before following her. If there's anything, just come at me. Yun Yi is innocent. Lu Zijuan caught up with Gu Shengyin and opened his mouth to say this. Gu Shengyin turned around and looked at Lu Zijuan as if he was an idiot. I've already divorced you. What else do you think I want to do? Find trouble with Lu Yuni? Find trouble for myself? Lu Zijuan. That was really what he was thinking. Gu Shengyin sneered, Master Lu, you don't have to be narcissistic. Our previous engagement was set by the elders. You're tired of me. In fact, I'm also annoyed when I look at you. Whether you like Lu Yuni or Little Peach, it has nothing to do with me. I came to Yunqi class today simply to watch a show. Isn't an actor singing for people to pay money to watch? Chapter 556. Hearing this, Lu Zijuan was furious. How can you insult Yuni like this? Gu Shengyin frowned and took 2 steps back. She looked at Lu Zijuan with disgust. Don't you know that you should lower your voice when talking to a lady? Where is your gentlemanly manner? Lu Zijuan. He felt that it was tiring to talk to Yan Ruohua now. What was the point? Was it the time to talk about gentlemanly manner? Gu Shengyin thought that she had made it very clear, but some people just didn't give up. Is there anything wrong with what I said? Gu Shengyin asked. Lu Zijuan said subconsciously, You said that Yuni was an actress. Oh. Gu Shengyin's face was cold. Go to Yunqing and ask someone who is the most famous actress in Yunqing. See if there is a second answer besides Lu Yuni. Lu Zijuan was choked by her for a long time and couldn't speak for a long time. He said hot-headedly, Even if others say that about her, you can't say that. Gu Shengyin, she looked at Lu Zijuan with a very gentle look. It was so gentle that it could make people mad. Lu Zijuan suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart. Sure enough, he heard her say, Lu Zijuan, if you are sick in the head, remember to take medicine in time. Don't give up treatment. This woman. She actually said that he was sick. Lu Zijuan's face turned red, but he, who claimed to have received a new education, told himself that he couldn't yell at a woman. Gu Shangyin didn't want to continue talking with such a moron. She said lazily, Lu Zijuan, I'll say it for the last time. I, Yen Ruohua, don't have any feelings for you, Lu Zijuan. Please don't feel good about yourself. I'm not in the mood to make trouble for your lover. You can rest assured. Finally, please don't come to me again. Even if we meet in Yunqing, let's be strangers who don't know each other. Lu Zijuan's face turned green and white. This woman, it was clearly him who looked down on her, but why was her expression and tone full of disdain towards him? What else did he want? Gu Shengyin interrupted him. Don't talk to me anymore. Otherwise, I will think that you still have feelings for me. I refuse to accept it. Lu Zijuan swallowed the words he was about to say and glared at Gu Shengyin. Why was she such a shameless woman? Gu Shengyin smiled with satisfaction. Very good, that's it. Young Master Lu, goodbye. Ah no, I hope that we will never meet again in this life. She was in a good mood after making Lu Zijuan speechless. Master and servant left the theater. After a long time, Xiao Xiao could not help but laugh. Miss, you're really amazing. She looked at Gu Shengyin with eyes full of admiration. Miss was right to leave the Lu family. In the past, when Miss was still the young madam of the Lu family, she looked indifferent every day. She didn't look happy at all and didn't like to talk. She was like a beauty made of wood. How lively Miss was now. Xiao Xiao liked this kind of Mississippi. She felt that Miss was just like a new life after leaving the Lu family. Gu Shengyin smiled slightly. There's nothing amazing about it. Some people, if you take them seriously, they can go to heaven. If you humiliate them, they will be honest. To put it simply, they need to be taught a lesson. Lu Zijuan was a typical example. Xiao Xiao felt as if the door of a new world had been opened for her. She felt that she admired her Miss more and more. Chapter 557. As Huang Fuqi looked at the information, it was as if he could see that person's dignified and virtuous face in his mind. He couldn't help but laugh softly, but it scared the adjutant beside him. What happened? The young commander actually laughed. More importantly, he actually laughed so gently. In his limited memory, the last time the young commander laughed like this was when he wiped out an entire group of bandits in Yunation. The adjutant couldn't help but shudder and didn't dare to think about it any further. Gu Shengyin's life had gradually gotten on track. Although she didn't show her design drawings in Yuncheng daily now, she slowly developed new tricks. In addition to the article about how women should know how to treat themselves well, she slowly began to share her dressing style, makeup tips, and so on. Yuncheng Daily even opened a separate page for her called, Miss Lin Jianke Teaches You How to Be a Good Woman. The effect was very obvious. On the small page below Yuncheng Daily, some letters of gratitude began to appear one after another. Some women thanked Lin Jianke for helping them find confidence. Some thanked her for giving them courage to leave an unhappy marriage, and some people directly became fans of Lin Jianke. They admired her for her erudition, her independence and her thinking, or simply adored her unique gift for beauty. Bai Yun Cloth House also made a lot of money because it was Lin Jianke's only business partner. It wasn't that there weren't any jealous people who had designs on Lin Jianke or Bai Yun Cloth House, but those people often didn't make a move before their own businesses ran into all kinds of problems. They couldn't even take care of themselves. After a few more visits, those people all knew that there was probably a big shot looking after Bai Yun Cloth House, so they gave up on this idea. Shan Yuanqing was prepared to face all kinds of accidents, but nothing had ever happened to Bai Yun Cloth House. He also attributed this to Gu Shengyin. This Miss Yen was probably not as simple as she appeared to be. If he really put it that way, he wasn't wrong. A certain man really looked after by Yun Cloth House because of Gu Shengyin. However, he never talked about these things. If it wasn't for the system, Gu Shengyin wouldn't even know about it. Every month, no matter how many new clothes were produced, it was never enough. The clothes designed by Lin Jianke seemed to have become a weather vane for women in Yunqing. It seemed that if they didn't have a piece of clothing designed by Lin Jianke, they would feel embarrassed to go out and visit their relatives and friends. Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin didn't know until recently that the famous Lin Jianren was Lin Luoran. The most fashionable clothes worn by women outside were all designed by Lin Luoran. Both Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin are very proud, but they keep Miss Lin's words in mind. No one can tell this secret to others. I know. I've heard of a drama before. It's about a man who was too outstanding and was hated by his neighbor. He got up in the middle of the night and secretly harmed his neighbor. Don't worry, miss, we won't tell anyone. Xiao Xiao patted her chest and nodded. Mrs. Lin can't help but reach out her hand and hit Lin Luoran's forehead heavily. You wicked girl, what are you talking about? Aren't you afraid of bad luck? Xiao Xiao hurriedly spat a few times on the ground. Bah, bah, bah. Spit out all the bad luck. Gu Shengyin had a premonition that things would not go so smoothly for her. As expected. Chapter 558. The Yen family came to the door. It was Yen Ruohua's father's birthday, and he sent someone to Yunqing to deliver a letter to Yen Ruohua. Only then did he know that Yen Ruohua had divorced the young master of the Lu family a few months ago. This was big news. The servant of the Yen family didn't even have time to drink tea. He hurried back to the Yen family to report the news to the master and madam. This was terrible. The master of the Yen family was furious and hurriedly sent someone to look for Yen Ruohua in Yunqing. Gu Shengyin couldn't hide her whereabouts and was found by an old servant of the Yen family. Miss, the master asks you to go home. The old servant looked at Gu Shengyin in amazement. He had served the Yen family for 20 years. It could be said that he had watched Yen Ruohua grow up and get married. He knew Yen Ruohua's character very well. How could she have such a lively temperament? He had never seen the style of the clothes and jewelry she was wearing. They were fresh and beautiful. Yen Ruohua looked more dazzling and beautiful than before after the divorce. He didn't know what Yen Ruohua had experienced in the Lu family. She actually became like this. Gu Shengyin sighed in her heart. She really didn't want to go back to Yen Ruohua's home. But obviously, she couldn't refuse at all now. Mrs. Zhang, wait a moment. Let me tidy up. Gu Shengyin asked Xiao Xiao to go out and inform Mr. Shin. When Shan Yuanqing heard this, he immediately sent a few capable servants over. They were all clean and honest. Gu Shengyin asked Mrs. Lin to put away the valuable things and lock them. She also kept the key close to her. Those people were guarding the courtyard for her during this period of time. Gu Shengyin took Mrs. Lin and Xiao Xiao back to the Yen family in Xianping City by car. There was a big difference between Xianping City and Yunqing. Gu Shengyin looked out all the way. The clothes of the people here were not like those in Yunqing. They were still the same as in the previous dynasty. The men wore long gowns, and most of the women wore their hair in a bun. They wore big, fat, and dull dresses. Even when they went out, they mostly used horse-drawn carriages, unlike in Yun City, where rickshaws were the majority. Those with better conditions even took cars. This was an old city that had not yet been affected by the reforms outside. Young miss, we're here. Gu Shengyin alighted from the carriage and entered the Yen family's mansion. As soon as she entered the residence, she felt as if there was an oppressive aura pressing down on her, making it hard for her to breathe. Gu Shengyin knew that this was a conditioned reflex of Yen Ruohua's body towards the house. In the 16 years before Yen Ruohua got married, the impression that this mansion gave her was that it was decaying, huge, old, and terrifying. It was like an old beast that was about to die, but it still wanted to suppress the people in its territory before it died. The father and mother of this body were waiting for her in the hall. Greetings, father and mother. Gu Shengyin went in and bowed. Kneel down. The old man sitting on the main seat didn't even look at her and shouted sternly. Sure enough. Gu Shengyin didn't kneel down. Instead, she looked up at him. This old man was wearing a dark red long gown with a black skullcap on his head. There was a long scar between his eyebrows, which added a bit of hostility. On the thumb of his left hand, there was a green thumb ring. This was a typical image of a feudal patriarch. Seeing that Gu Shengyin didn't follow his order, Master Yen finally turned his eyes to his rebellious daughter. Evil creature. You've been out for a few years. Have you forgotten the basic etiquette? Chapter 559. Gu Shengyin looked at old Master Yen calmly. After the previous dynasty was overthrown, kneeling was abolished. Father, where are the rules you're talking about? Old Master Yen raised his hand and swept the cup in his hand to the ground. The tea splashed on Gu Shengyin's skirt. What a pity, she thought. This was one of her favorite dresses. Old Master Yen acted as if he had never known this daughter of his. Look at what you've become. After going out for a few years, you think you've grown up and don't even recognize your father, right? No wonder the Lu family despises you. Gu Shengyin sneered in her heart. His own daughter was bullied by her husband's family, but the first person he blamed was his daughter. In old Master Yan's heart, if a woman was disliked by her husband, then it must be her own fault. She had already expected what would happen when she returned home. This was also the reason why she was unwilling to return to the Yen family after divorcing Lu Zijuan. Yen Ruohua was willing to tolerate it back then, but Gu Shengyin was unwilling. She looked straight at old Master Yen. Father, I married into the Lu family for 2 years and have been a virtuous wife according to your teachings. I didn't dare to do anything that crossed the line. I didn't even dare to announce that I had studied. But do you know what I got in return? 2 years. For 2 whole years, Lu Zijuan never stepped into my room. I've been married to him for 2 years and the number of times we've met can be counted. The most recent time we met was when he took a fancy to an actress and asked me to give her a seat. What did I do wrong? There was nothing wrong at all. He didn't even give me the most basic dignity. In the Lu family, even a servant secretly wanted to laugh at me. Gu Shengyin said the last sentence calmly. Father, what do you think I should do for the best? Old Master Yen had already stood up in anger because of her words. He had never been disobeyed like this before. He pointed a trembling finger at Gu Shengyin for a long time, unable to speak. Madame Yen quickly stood up to pat him on the back, but was pushed aside by him. Get lost. Look at your good daughter. Madame Yen looked to be no more than 40 years old. Her eyes were gentle and timid, and it seemed that she had been a beauty when she was younger. Yen Ruohua's looks were inherited from her. She was someone who didn't have her own opinions. After she got married, she relied on her husband to survive. If old Master Yen told her to go east, she definitely wouldn't dare to go west. Now that she was so embarrassed in front of her daughter, she felt ashamed, but more than that, she was worried about her daughter. Ruohua, don't make your father angry. Quickly apologize to him. Gu Shengyin could not get angry with her. This woman had been educated since she was a child. She had experienced such an environment, so she had developed a cowardly personality. Gu Shengyin lowered her eyes. I don't know what I did wrong. Please tell me, mother. This. Madame Yen was speechless. When she saw that her husband was angry, apologizing and admitting her mistake had already become her habit. She had never thought about whether she needed to apologize or why she needed to apologize. It was really pitiful to live so humbly. At this moment, old Master Yen calmed down and swept his sword-like gaze at Gu Shengyin. If you really want to save face, you should have killed yourself in the Lu family's house when they wanted to divorce you. You could have also earned a chastity memorial arch for our Yen family's girls. Chapter 560. Madame Yen was startled by this sentence. Gu Shengyin's heart was completely cold. In old Master Yan's eyes, this married daughter of his was like water that had been poured out. Her life and death had nothing to do with the Yen family. Her only use was whether she could bring benefits to the Yen family. Now, the divorced Yen Ruohua was an existence that brought shame to the family in his eyes. It would be best if she died completely and ended all troubles. She sneered and said, "Then I'll really have to disappoint you. You treat my life as an ant, but I cherish it very much. Get out of here." Old Master Yen was furious. Gu Shengyin left slowly. After all, Yen Ruohua was still the eldest daughter of the Yen family. Her courtyard was still there. Mrs. Lin had been waiting outside anxiously. When she saw Gu Shengyin come out, she quickly came over. He hurriedly came forward and asked, "Miss, are you all right? Did old master make things difficult for you? If it doesn't work out, we can go back to Yunqing." She knew what kind of person old Master Yen was. Her miss had just gone in, so she definitely wouldn't be treated well. Gu Shengyin smiled and shook her head. "It's nothing serious. It's just as I expected. Let's go, Mrs. Lin. It's been a long journey. Let's go and have a good rest." In the evening, Madame Yen came to Gu Shengyin's room. "Damn it, Ruohua." She began to cry as soon as she entered the room. She cried and talked about her poor daughter. Gu Shengyin was really helpless against this woman. Unlike old Master Yen, who only cared about the family and herself, Madame Yen really loved her only daughter. Gu Shengyin knew that in Yen Ruohua's life, the person who treated her the best was her mother. It was just that Madame Yen was too cowardly. She didn't dare to resist old Master Yen. When her daughter was imprisoned in the courtyard, she cried secretly every time and brought her things in private. However, she never dared to ask old Master Yen to let Ruohua out. Gu Shengyin listened to her crying for a long time without any intention of stopping. She couldn't help but say, "Mother, don't cry. I don't feel that my life is hard at all. I'm living a much better life than I was in the Lu family." Madame Yen didn't believe her at all. "You're a girl. How can you have a good life outside?" Her thoughts were still stuck in her own era, or rather, she imagined her daughter to be someone like herself. Gu Shengyin handed her a handkerchief to wipe her tears and said, "Look at me carefully, mother. Do you think I look like I'm not doing well?" Madame Yen quickly wiped her tears. She hadn't looked at Ruohua in detail yet. The room was lit by an old-fashioned oil lamp, so it was hard to see clearly. However, Madame Yen could still see that her daughter's complexion was very good, and the skin on her hands was also very delicate. It was obvious that she had never suffered before. Moreover, her daughter seemed to be different from before. Madame Yen couldn't quite put her finger on it. Her eyes were brighter, and she seemed to have become prettier. Gu Shengyin tries to brainwash her. "Mom, you don't know. Now in Yunqing, many women work outside and earn as much as men. They can live very freely by themselves." Madame Yen refutes her. "You're talking nonsense again. Women should marry into a good family and honestly help their husbands and children. It's men's business to work outside and earn money." As she spoke, she remembered that her daughter had nothing to do with the Lu family now. The tears that she had stopped with great difficulty fell down again. Gu Shengyin was speechless. There was really no way to communicate with people with different views. Chapter 561. Gu Shengyin finally coaxed Mrs. Yen to believe that she didn't suffer outside. After coaxing her to have a good rest, Mrs. Yen felt that it was more tiring than anything else. The next day, before dawn, someone knocked on the door. Mrs. Lin walked to Gu Shengyin's bed. Looking at her miss who was still in a daze, she felt a little distressed. But Master was looking for her, so she had to wake Gu Shengyin up. "Miss, wake up. Master sent someone to look for you." Gu Shengyin got up helplessly. She put on her clothes and tidied up. When she went out of the yard, there was just a trace of light in the sky. There was no light in the hall. It was dark. With the old furniture and utensils inside, there was a strange sense of gloominess. Although Gu Shengyin was not afraid of these, she still woke up. She felt a little strange. Yesterday, Master Yen wished that he didn't have this daughter and never saw her again. Why did he send someone to look for her so early today? She bowed obediently and stood aside, waiting for him to explain the purpose of his visit. Master Yen originally wanted to ignore his daughter, but after waiting for a long time, he found that she was standing calmly. There was no anxiety or hesitation on her face. On the contrary, he was angry. I found a good marriage for you. The other party's family is not worse than the Lu family. They don't mind that you are remarrying. Go to Yunqing tomorrow to pack your dowry and bring it back. Get ready to get married. Master Yen said his decision. What? Gu Shengyin looked up in surprise. She had just divorced and returned home yesterday. Today, he found a marriage for her? With Master Yan's words yesterday, she didn't believe that this marriage would be good at all. Father, I don't want to get married now. Gu Shengyin replied and asked the system to check who Master Yen had been in contact with recently. Ridiculous. Hearing her words, Master Yen was furious again. You don't want to get married just because you say so? You're a woman living outside alone. If others find out, who knows how they'll gossip about our Yen family. Let me tell you, you either get married obediently or quickly kill yourself with the 3-foot white silk. Don't live in this world and embarrass our Yen family. At this time, the system's results came out. Gu Shengyin couldn't help but sneer in her heart. This was indeed a good family. That old man already had grandchildren who could walk. He had 2 sons and 4 daughters. The youngest one was only 2 years older than Yen Ruohua. She was marrying over to be his mother and grandmother. Old Master Yen did not treat Yen Ruohua as a daughter at all. Since that's the case, there's no need to give you any face. Gu Shengyin sneered, Li family, right? I remember that Master Li is a few years older than you, right? If I divorce my husband's family, wouldn't it be embarrassing for you and old Master Li to become your son-in-law? The face of the Yen family is actually grown on your mouth, right? Old Master Yen was so angry that his face turned blue. His hands trembled violently as he pointed at Gu Shengyin. You, get out of here. Gu Shengyin continued his words. Don't be angry and hurt your health. Otherwise, I'll be accused of being unfilial. I'll be obedient and get out. If you don't like it, I can get out of here and go back to Yunqing. I promise that I won't come back for the rest of my life and make you upset. Chapter 562. She looked at old Master Yen as if she could faint in an instant. However, reality proved that this old man's body was very strong. He suddenly calmed down and looked at Gu Shengyin, who hadn't left yet, and said coldly, You're bold now and your wings have hardened. You dare to be stubborn with me. I'll only ask you one thing. Do you still care about your mother? Gu Shengyin's expression turned cold. Father, what do you mean? Old Master Yen snorted. She raised such an unfilial thing like you. Just for this reason alone, I can divorce her. Gu Shengyin seemed to have met old Master Yen for the first time. She said in disbelief, You're actually threatening me with my mother? Her gaze turned completely cold. My mother entered the Yen family at the age of 14 and married you for more than 20 years. She has been diligently taking care of the backyard for you. Do you really not cherish the friendship of more than 20 years? Old Master Yen snorted and didn't say anything. What do you want me to do? Gu Shengyin's eyebrows suddenly moved, and her tone softened. Old Master Yan's face revealed a smug expression. No matter how unruly this eldest daughter was, she still had to be obedient in his hands. He raised his hand and stroked his goatee. In a month, someone from the Li family will come with betrothal gifts and marry you. What if I don't want to marry? Old Master Yan's voice was gloomy. Then wait for your mother to be kicked out by me with a divorce letter. Gu Shengyin didn't reply, but Madame Yan's voice sounded. It turns out that I've served old master so carefully for so many years, and all I got was my only daughter being forced to marry into that cannibalistic place. Can I be divorced so easily? Madame Yen slowly walked in from outside the door. She had heard that her daughter had been called in by old master, so she was worried and hurriedly packed and changed her clothes before rushing over. She happened to hear the conversation between the father and daughter. Gu Shengyin saw that her face was covered in tears. Perhaps she was crying for herself, or perhaps for her daughter. Being questioned like this, old Master Yan's expression became somewhat unsightly. He angrily rebuked, "Woman, what do you know? Hurry up and get down." Madame Yan, who had always been obedient to him, didn't listen to him this time. Instead, she said faintly, "I only have one child, Ruohua. She is my lifeblood. All these years, I didn't dare to overstep my boundaries at all. I racked my brains for the Yan family. It is so that my Ruohua can marry into a good family and have someone to rely on in her family." She looked at old Master Yan, her gaze causing him to not dare to look straight at her. "But now, you want my Ruohua to marry into that kind of family. You're forcing her to die." Gu Shengyin saw that she was a little emotional, and quickly comforted her. "Mother, don't be excited, don't worry, I won't marry. Ruohua will be fine. He will always accompany mother." Madame Yan looked at her daughter, who was comforting her worriedly. Then she looked at old Master Yan, who was looking at her coldly. She felt something in her heart that wanted to be vented. "Even if I die, I don't want my Ruohua to marry into the Li family." "Old master, didn't you want to divorce your wife? Then divorce her." "Good, good, good. You two, mother and daughter, are going to turn the sky upside down for me. If you want me to divorce my wife, I'll fulfill your wish." Old Master Yan's face was hurt by his first wife, and anger surged in his heart. "Bring me a pen and paper." Chapter 563. After he shouted, he realized that no one had moved. In order to talk to Gu Shengyin, he had sent all the servants out. Naturally, no one would be able to hear him at this moment. A trace of awkwardness flashed across old Master Yan's face. Gu Shengyin sneered. "There's no need to trouble father with the divorce papers. We're already part of the Republican Alliance. What divorce papers are there? If father really doesn't want to live with my mother anymore, just sign the divorce papers. From then on, the two of us will have nothing to do with each other." "Ruohua." Madame Yan pulled Gu Shengyin's sleeve uneasily. Saying those words to old Master Yan was already the boldest thing she had ever done in her life. How could a person like her dare to think about marriage? Gu Shengyin couldn't explain anything to her. Madame Yan was only in her 30s or 40s. If this was in the future, many people wouldn't be married. Old Master Yan sneered. "Divorce? Our ancestors have set the rules for thousands of years. There's no such thing as a divorce." Gu Shengyin said sternly, "The previous dynasty has already fallen. If father says something like this again, you'll have to worry about people from Xianping City's security department." When old Master Yan heard the name of the security department, a trace of fear flashed through his eyes. He forced himself to keep up appearances. "If Madame Zhao wants a divorce, that's fine. For so many years, she's been using my Zhao family's money. Her dowry was almost all given to you as a dowry. As long as you two are willing to leave the marriage with nothing, I can agree to your request. Also, Yan Ruohua, you can ask to be removed from the clan." Madame Yan looked at this person in disbelief. She didn't think that he would be so heartless after being married for more than 20 years. Removing Ruohua from the clan meant that she could no longer receive the protection of the Yan clan. After old Master Yan passed away, Yan Ruohua wouldn't be able to receive any of the Yan clan's wealth. "All right." Gu Shengyin agreed. "I don't want anything from the Yan clan." It was already a pleasant surprise to be able to pull Madame Yan out of this pit of fire. She wasn't greedy for the Yan clan's little wealth. Now, the benefits that White Cloud Cloth Store could bring her were beyond the imagination of the Yan family. Old Master Yan looked at them coldly. "I hope you won't regret it." Gu Shengyin replied bluntly, "Don't worry, old Master Yan. Even if I, Gu Shengyin, fall in the future, I will never step into the Yan family again." She supported her mother out of the door. As soon as she stepped out of the door, Madame Yan's body, which had been holding on for a long time, went limp. Fortunately, Gu Shengyin supported her. Mother's Ruohua, what are we going to do in the future? She was now worried about the future of mother and daughter. It doesn't matter, mother. I'll take care of you in the future. Gu Shengyin comforted her. Madame Yan was still worried. She couldn't imagine what kind of life she would have in the future. However, although she was hesitant, she did not regret it. At the very least, her Ruohua would not have to marry into such a family and be trampled upon by others. Gu Shengyin returns to her courtyard. She immediately instructs Mama Lin to find the elders of the Yan clan. She smiles and goes to pack her things. The two of them are so scared that they quickly ask what happened. Gu Shengyin briefly explains what happened. Xiao Xiao is already filled with righteous indignation. Even Mama Lin can't help but complain that old Master Yan is too heartless. Mama Lin doesn't dare to delay Gu Shengyin's order. She quickly goes to find the elders of the Yan clan. Madame Yan is a little confused. Why do you ask Mama Lin to find the elders of the Yan clan? Gu Shengyin personally fetches water for her mother to wash her face. Of course, to be a witness. She also wants to leave a backup plan. If old Master Yan finds out what she did in the future, it will be troublesome if he uses the relationship between her parents and the Yan clan to blackmail her. It's better to cut her in half. Chapter 564. Under the witness of the elders of the Yan family, Madame Yan and old Master Yan signed the divorce agreement. Gu Shengyin also personally signed a letter, stating that she would no longer have anything to do with the Yan family in the future. Old Master Yan also signed his name on it. Fortunately, Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin were both part of Gu Shengyin's dowry at the time, so their marriage contracts were all in Gu Shengyin's hands. They could directly go with Gu Shengyin. Under the supervision of the two old servants sent by old Master Yan, Madame Yan. No, she should be called Madame Zhao now. Under the supervision of the two old servants sent by old Master Yan, she only brought 2 sets of clothes with her. Even the jewelry on her body was removed completely before she left the house. When she stepped out of the Yan family's mansion, Zhao Shi's body trembled. She didn't know how long it had been since she stepped out of this door. To her, the outside of the door was like another world. Gu Shengyin understood her thoughts. Most of the time, it wasn't the outside world that was scary, but the world in her own heart that she imagined for herself most of the time. It wasn't this door that locked them in, but herself. A carriage was already parked outside the door. Xiao Xiao had called for it in advance. Gu Shengyin helped Zhao Shi into the carriage. They went to the platform and bought tickets to Yuncheng. It was Zhao Shi's first time going to a place so far away. It was also her first time taking a train. It was her first time sitting in the same space with so many strangers. All of this was so unfamiliar to her, and it also scared her. Zhao Shi wasn't sure if she would dare to say those words again if she was given another chance. However, she looked up at her daughter. Her Ruohua was sitting so vividly beside her. No matter what price she had to pay, it was all worth it. After arriving at Yuncheng, Zhao Shi's eyes couldn't turn away. There were all kinds of people on the streets here. She even saw people with fair skin and golden hair. Many women were wearing clothes that she had never seen before. They had a fragrance on their bodies as they walked past her. There were also many people sitting in small cars that were pulled by people. Gu Shengyin took her back to the rented courtyard. "This is where you live, Ruohua?" Zhao Shi asked in surprise. It was different from the standard old-style residence of the Yan clan. There were already many new things in this small courtyard. Especially after Gu Shengyin's arrival, for the sake of comfort, after obtaining the consent of the owner of the hospital, he installed transparent glass windows, installed curtains with his own design, and placed a soft sofa in the room. Whether it was the glass, the sofa, or the overhead light, Mrs. Zhao had never seen them before. What she had seen and heard in the past half a day had completely overturned what she had known for the past 30 years. The rooms were all ready-made. While Madame Zhao was bathing, she stared at the bathtub for a long time in amazement. The Yan family has never seen these before. She suddenly felt a secret delight in her heart. Even old Master Yen had never seen these things before. He thought that he and Ruohua would not have a good life after coming out. Who knew that life here was much better than Xianping City? But she also knew that these things were definitely not something that ordinary people could afford to enjoy. At night, after she finished washing up, she wore the pajamas that Gu Shengyin gave her. After hesitating for a long time, she finally pulled Gu Shengyin and quietly asked, "Living in a place like this must cost a lot of money, right? We're outside now, so it's better to save some money." Chapter 565. Gu Shengyin laughs. "Mom, don't worry. I'm a big boss now. It's nothing." Zhao doesn't believe it. "What big boss?" "You're a girl," Gu Shengyin interrupts her. "I'll take you to buy clothes tomorrow. You'll know then." Zhao still wants to say something, but Gu Shengyin hurriedly says, "Oh, I'm so tired today. I'm so tired." Zhao hurriedly says, "Then have a good rest." Gu Shengyin chuckles and quickly says, "Mom, you should also have a good rest." Zhao tosses and turns in bed for half a night without falling asleep. She still feels a little unreal in her heart. Did she just leave the Yen family like this? Did she come to such a strange place? For the first time, she doesn't have to wash feet and drink tea at night. She doesn't have to sleep in her clothes because she is afraid that Master Yen will drink something or get up at night. Zhao gets up early as usual in the morning. When she looks around, she remembers that she doesn't have to do anything. She simply gets up. Mrs. Lin is preparing breakfast. When she sees her, she smiles and says, "Mrs. Lin, you're awake. You can take a walk in the yard first. Breakfast will be ready soon." She used to call this breakfast. Breakfast is a new word she has learned recently. Zhao She walked around the courtyard. Gu Shengyin had bought a few pots of flowers and placed them here. They were all blooming well. Birds were chirping in the treetops, and the footsteps of pedestrians could be heard outside the courtyard. Occasionally, a hawker would yell at the top of his lungs. This is a place full of vitality. When she enters the door, Gu Shengyin has already got up. Breakfast is millet porridge. Mrs. Lin steamed 2 steamers of steamed buns with meat fillings. In addition, there are some homemade pickles in a small plate. There is also a plate of snacks. It's very simple, but Zhao is very satisfied. She doesn't have to serve the other person. When he is happy, she sits down to eat the half-cold food. After dinner, Gu Shengyin takes Zhao to buy clothes. Gu Shengyin stops her. "Mom, didn't you see what people were wearing on the street before? If you look like this, we won't even wear old ladies anymore." Zhao She laughed. "Aren't I just an old lady?" Gu Shengyin took her hand. "How old are you? You're still very young." Madame Zhao couldn't argue with her. In addition, she was really tempted by the clothes of the women she saw earlier, so Gu Shengyin took her out. Gu Shengyin took Zhao She directly to the largest clothing store in Baiyun Textiles. "Miss Yen." The shopkeeper was very enthusiastic when he saw Gu Shengyin. Shan Yuanqing and Madame Shan had personally brought Gu Shengyin here before. They had also said that this Miss Yen was a distinguished guest of White Cloud Cloth Store and that she could just take whatever she liked. Gu Shengyin looked at Madame Zhao. "I brought my mother to see the clothes. You do what you need to do." There were still many customers in the shop looking at the clothes. Madame Zhao didn't know how to choose at all. She looked at her daughter for help. Gu Shengyin carefully glanced around the shelves and took down 2 sets of dresses. One was light blue, and the other was light purple. Madame Zhao's skin was very white. This color was just right. There was a place in the store for trying on clothes, but Gu Shengyin didn't see Madame Zhao go out for a long time. She felt that something was wrong, so she walked in and called softly. After a while, she heard Madame Zhao's shy voice, "How can I wear these clothes out?" Chapter 566. Gu Shengyin couldn't help laughing. She persuaded Zhao to come out. When she saw Zhao She, for a moment, her heart even surged with a kind of shock. Madame Zhao was only in her 30s, but she used to always wear big and old-fashioned clothes, which made people feel that she had aged a lot. But when she changed into the Chong Sam, Gu Shengyin realized that her mother had such a good figure. Her face was gentle, her skin was white, and her figure was exquisite. Wearing such a light blue Chong Sam, people would believe that she was in her 30s when she went out. "Mother, you are so beautiful," Gu Shengyin praised sincerely. Zhao was still a little embarrassed. When she heard Gu Shengyin's words, her face turned red. She said angrily, "You are old. Don't talk about beauty." At this time, another customer in the shop said to the waiter, "Do you have any more of the Chong Sam you are wearing? Give me a set." The woman who spoke looked at Zhao Shi with admiration in her eyes. Gu Shengyin said with a smile, "Look, others also think it is beautiful." Zhao lowered her head shyly, but she was happy in her heart. There was no woman who didn't care about her appearance. There was no woman who didn't like being praised, especially from strangers. Gu Shengyin generously took Mrs. Zhao around Yun City. When they came back, not only Mrs. Lin, but also Xiao Xiao and Mrs. Lin's hands were full of new things. Zhao Shi had completely changed into a different person from the inside out. From clothes to jewelry to shoes, Gu Shengyin bought several sets of everything for her mother. Zhao complained that her daughter was too extravagant, but she couldn't hide the smile on her face. On the third day, Gu Shengyin took Zhao to visit Shen Yuanxing and his wife. She told Zhao Shi that the other party was her business partner. Looking at the Western-style house of Shen's family, there were gorgeous chandeliers on the ceiling, and there was even a small fountain in the garden. All of these showed the wealth of the owner. Only then did Madame Zhao understand what her daughter meant when she said that she was also a boss. The Shen family was so polite to Gu Shengyin that they were almost cautious. Once again, she had a new understanding of her daughter. It turned out that Ruohua had already become such an outstanding woman without her knowing anything. No wonder she was so confident when facing the Yen family. No wonder she gave up on the Yen family's assets without hesitation. Lady Zhao didn't know what to say. She originally thought that a woman who married into a good family would be the best ending for her husband and children. But now, her understanding became even more vague. She didn't need to carefully serve others and didn't need to rely on her husband's family to live. Her Ruohua could also live well. Mrs. Shen was very friendly when she heard that she was Gu Shengyin's mother. After all, Lady Zhao was the wife of a noble family. Although she might not have much knowledge, her manners were excellent. This made Lady Shen even more curious about Gu Shengyin's identity. The meeting this time allowed Zhao Shi to be completely at ease. The worries in her heart were also put down. She and Lady Shen had become good friends. Although there was no lack of Lady Shen's intention to befriend her, Lady Zhao had a good personality. After getting along with her for a long time, very few people could dislike her. A month later, Lady Zhao was already able to dress up fashionably and beautifully and go shopping with Lady Shen. Especially after knowing that her daughter was the guest in the forest who was especially popular with women in Yunqing and the owner of Baiyun Cloth Company, she didn't hesitate to spend money. Women, as long as there was a change in their mindset, everything would slowly change for the better. Chapter 567. Since Mrs. Shen was her old friend, Zhao was not so clingy to her daughter. Today, she made an appointment with Mrs. Shen to watch the opera. Gu Shengyin was bored at home alone. She just heard that there was a new circus in the south of the city, so she planned to take a look. Xiao Xiao went to Baiyun Textiles to get the new clothes samples today. Mrs. Lin stayed at home to look after the house, so Gu Shengyin had to go alone. The circus was not bad. It would be better if there was no later episode. Gu Shengyin looked at a group of people in black who suddenly appeared. Some were holding guns in their hands. Of course, most of them were holding knives or iron rods. Then, the handsome young man who was performing the trapeze in the circus just now didn't know where he hid his weapon. The two sides began to fight directly. The people who came to watch the show were the ones who suffered. Unfortunately, Gu Shengyin was one of these people. However, compared to those people who were so scared that they fainted directly, Gu Shengyin was a little calmer. This kind of fight was usually between the two sides who had a grudge against each other. Basically, innocent people were rarely affected. Of course, the premise was that you didn't wander in the middle of the fight. Otherwise, swords and guns had no eyes. You would be a fool to bet your life on luck. The exit was blocked by a group of people. Gu Shengyin looked around and found a quiet corner with a big table as cover. It was a very safe place. She squatted down and was ready to wait for the storm to pass. However, it turned out that the seemingly safe place might not be so safe. A figure hit the table where Gu Shengyin was hiding with a bang. The table didn't break, but Gu Shengyin, who was hiding on the table, was exposed. The man in black obviously thought that Gu Shengyin was with the circus. He didn't even look and directly shot at her. Gu Shengyin's eyes turned cold. If she was an ordinary person, she would probably be seriously injured even if she didn't die. She nimbly rolled on the ground and dodged the bullet. What a waste of the clothes she had specially worn today. Her dodging attracted the attention of the group of black-clothed men. They were only suspicious at first, but now they were sure. Gu Shengyin hurriedly dodged the pursuing bullets and men in black. She was about to reach the door. Her arm was suddenly pulled by someone, and her whole body fell into a cold and hard embrace. At the same time, a large number of armed soldiers in military uniforms entered. "Everyone, stop what you're doing. Violators will be executed on the spot." Someone fired a shot into the air. Everyone stopped what they were doing. "You seem to get into trouble every time we meet?" A cold voice rang in Gu Shengyin's ears. Huang Fu-chi looked at the woman in his arms. She looked so small, but her eyes were calm and gentle. It was as if she was born to wear Su Xiu's clothes and sit in an exquisite attic to drink tea. Who would have thought that just a moment ago, she was still able to keep a straight face under the rain of bullets? Gu Shengyin blinked and blinked again. Then she asked in confusion, "Excuse me, have we met before?" As soon as she finished speaking, Gu Shengyin felt the hand around her waist tighten, and the air around her turned cold. Huang Fu-chi's adjutant automatically took 3 steps back. "Very good. This woman doesn't remember me at all." Huang Fu-xiaoshui expressed that he had never enjoyed such treatment before. Gu Shengyin laughed in her heart. "Who told you to pretend to be cold last time? I'll let you have a taste of being ignored." Chapter 568. The air froze in an instant. Except for Gu Shengyin, everyone looked at Huang Fu-chi in fear. They were afraid that if they were not careful, he would get angry and they would be the ones to suffer. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Huang Fu-chi held Gu Shengyin's waist with his right arm, bent down, and lifted her up with his left hand. Gu Shengyin was speechless. "What are you doing?" Gu Shengyin glared at him. "Put me down." Huang Fu-chi turned a deaf ear. "Young Marshal Huang Fu, you're kidnapping an innocent woman." Gu Shengyin was furious. This man looked like a gentleman, but why did he look like a hooligan? Huang Fu-chi stopped and lowered his head. The corners of his lips lifted slightly. "Now you know who I am?" Gu Shengyin was speechless. This man was not only a hooligan, but he was also narrow-minded. She struggled hard, but she couldn't break free. No matter how hard she tried, she still couldn't break free. Well, strength wasn't on the same level. "Young Marshal Huang Fu, what are you trying to do?" Huang Fu-chi carried her all the way to the car, threw her into the trunk, closed the door, and got in himself. He did it in one go. "I like you. Didn't you say so yourself? You're trying to steal me." The car skidded. Under young Marshal Huang Fu's cold gaze, the driver in front thought about how to report this news to the commander and madam as soon as possible. As for Gu Shengyin was dumbfounded. There was actually someone in this world who could say that he was trying to steal someone. She tried to reason with him. "Young Marshal Huang Fu, listen to me. We were strangers before," Huang Fu-chi said. "Not anymore." Gu Shengyin said, "If I suddenly disappear, my family will be worried." Huang Fu-chi said, "Don't worry, it won't take up much of your time." Gu Shengyin asked suspiciously, "Young Marshal Huang Fu, what are you trying to do?" Huang Fu Chi said, "I'm taking you back to see my parents." Gu Shengyin was speechless. She looked down at her appearance. Her dress was dirty because it had been rolled on the ground earlier. Needless to say, her hair must be messy at this moment. She was going to see his parents with such an appearance? No, wasn't the point? He was just casually taking a woman whom he had only met twice to see his parents? This was too casual. Gu Shengyin said, "Young Marshal, this kind of thing requires a foundation of feelings. If you're just looking for a shield, I'm not suitable." Huang Fu Chi turned his head and looked at her seriously. "I have a lot of feelings for you. Except for you, no other woman can make me like this. Since I've taken a fancy to you, there's no other way. I have no intention of using you as a shield. This man's side profile was extremely handsome. When he spoke seriously, he could easily mesmerize all women. That was if they didn't hear him. Gu Shengyin chose to keep quiet because of her. In front of this man with the logic of a robber, anything she said was useless. The car drove into a Western-style building with a white carved fence. Huang Fu Chi pulled Gu Shengyin into the house. A noblewoman in a navy blue dress was playing with a cat. When she saw Huang Fu Chi and Gu Shengyin, she stood up in surprise. "Tong Feng, who is this?" Tong Feng was Huang Fu Chi's courtesy name. The great bird rises with the wind one day and soars 90,000 miles into the sky. It was obvious that Marshal Huang Fu had high hopes for his son. Gu Shengyin didn't need to think to know who this noblewoman was. She was dressed like this, and she even addressed Huang Fu Chi as such. Huang Fu Chi pulled Gu Shengyin forward and answered his mother's question. "Your daughter-in-law." Chapter 569. As soon as he finished his words, the cat in his wife's hand screamed miserably and then struggled to jump out of her arms. The marshal's wife came to her senses. Looking at the white cat's fur in her hand, she realized that she had lost her composure. She looked at Gu Shengyin with a very strange expression. Gu Shengyin could feel that there was no malice in her eyes. It seemed that the marshal's wife saw that Gu Shengyin was a little uncomfortable. Looking at Gu Shengyin's embarrassed appearance, she understood. She looked at her son reproachfully. "How could you let a girl make herself look like this?" Then she looked at Gu Shengyin kindly. "I'll ask someone to take you to change first." Gu Shengyin thanked her. Madame Huang Fu asked the maids to prepare new clothes for her and took her to freshen up. After Gu Shengyin left, Madame Huang Fu could not restrain the joy in her heart. She said to Huang Fu Chi, "Which family is this girl from? How long have you known each other? Are you in love with each other?" Huang Fu Chi answered methodically, "Her name is Yen Ruohua. We have known each other for a few months." He directly avoided the latter question. The marshal's wife, who knew her son's character well, immediately knew that her son was still in love with her unrequited love. The marshal's wife became more interested in Gu Shengyin. Although her son was a little cold, no matter his family background or character, he was the most attractive girl. How could she not be moved? However, the marshal's wife muttered, "Her surname is Yen? There seems to be no rich family surnamed Yen in our Yunqing." But she immediately felt relieved. "We don't need a daughter-in-law from a noble family to keep our face. It's good enough that her family background is clean." It was not easy for Tong Feng to find a girl he liked. The marshal's wife was very pleased. However, the next second, she was shocked by her son's words. Huang Fu Chi said, "She was married before, but unfortunately, she met the wrong person. Now she has divorced." This. The marshal's wife frowned. Could it be that her son actually liked this kind of woman? It didn't matter if the daughter-in-law of the marshal's residence had a lower background, but she couldn't quite accept this woman who had been married before. In the hearts of all mothers in the world, their sons would always be the best. Even a fairy would be a match for them. What's more, their family's Tong Feng was top-notch in everything. How could the marshal's wife accept that he had fallen in love with a woman who had divorced him? "Tong Feng, it is impossible for the marshal's mansion to accept a young madam who has remarried," the marshal's wife said to Huang Fu Chi solemnly. Huang Fu-chi's expression did not change. Then your son will not accept any other woman besides her. The marshal's wife was speechless. No one knew better than him how bad his son's temper was. It was exactly the same as a certain old man. If he had made up his mind, no one would be able to change his mind. That girl called Yen Ruohua, what kind of charm did she have to make her son fall in love with her so much? At this moment, Yen Ruohua had finished tidying up and was brought over by a maid. Greetings to the marshal's wife. The marshal's wife looked at her carefully and praised her in her heart. This girl's appearance, temperament, and etiquette were all good. It's the first time Tong Feng has brought a girl back. This old woman is very happy. Miss Yen, do you mind talking with me? Chapter 570. Huang Fu-chi was chased out by his mother. The reason was that a man like him should not stand in the way when the women were chatting. Huang Fu-chi knew that his mother wanted to know what kind of person Yen Ruohua was. Whether it was his mother's character or Gu Xingyin's character, there was nothing in this conversation that could worry him. After more than an hour, Huang Fu-chi was called over by his mother. The first thing he saw was the commander's wife holding Gu Xingyin's hand intimately. The two of them seemed to be chatting happily. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly. He knew that as long as this woman was willing, she could easily win the favor of anyone. When the commander's wife saw him, she smiled and said, "It's getting late. You should take Ruohua home." She even started to address her as Ruohua. Huang Fu-chi called for a car. When he left with Gu Shengyin, the commander's wife warmly invited Gu Shengyin to visit the next time. The two of them sat in the car in silence. Gu Shengyin saw that he was sitting upright and had no intention of speaking at all. She asked, "Aren't you curious about what your mother and I talked about?" Huang Fu-chi glanced at her and said, "She will tell me when we get home." Gu Shengyin thought for a moment and said, "I have already made it clear to the commander's wife that you were just joking. She won't take it seriously." Huang Fu-chi asked, "What did I say?" Gu Shengyin was speechless. He was pretending to be confused. She said angrily, "You said that I was her daughter-in-law." The driver in the front felt that he might not be able to live for long. It was not good to know too much about the handsome man's private matters. Huang Fu-chi said indifferently, "I'm not joking." Gu Shengyin was furious. "Do you know who I am? What's the situation at home? What kind of experience have I had? This is not a child's play. Young Marshal, I still cherish my reputation very much." Huang Fu-chi turned around and looked at her in confusion. "Why are you so angry?" Gu Shengyin looked into his eyes. He was not joking. He really did not understand. She felt that she could no longer communicate with this man. "I've said so much, but he didn't listen at all." At this moment, Huang Fu-chi continued, "I wasn't lying to my mother. You will indeed be her daughter-in-law. The woman that I, Huang Fu-chi, have taken a fancy to is destined to be mine. As for your question just now, I know that your name is Yen Ruohua. A few days ago, you severed ties with your family and got married once. 4 months ago, you divorced. I know all that. I don't care. If you want to take your time, that's fine. I can wait." Gu Shengyin was speechless. "Have you not considered the feelings of your family? How can the dignified commander-in-chief's residence accept a woman who has remarried?" Huang Fu-chi frowned and looked at her. "You don't need to worry about these things. You just have to agree to marry me, and then wait happily to marry me. Of course, I will take care of everything else." In his mind, this was the only thing Gu Shengyin needed to do. As a man, how could he let his woman worry about anything else? Of course, what Huang Fu Shaoshui did not say was that even if Gu Shengyin did not agree, he would snatch her away. The men of the Huang Fu family had never been gentlemen. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.